I am Mnemosyne. You found a niche of my vast domain.
Silent Night, Violent Night, a Corey Goodwin mystery, takes place in the sinister, disturbing world of book publishing. My world. Years ago, back when all the big New York publishers were spinning off satellites optimistically here in the Bay Area, I got my first job in publishing for Canfield Press at 850 Montgomery, right up the street, the local division of Harper & Row. It was the golden age. We all had a ball. But times changed, and before too long, instead of everybody hanging out together after work over a beer and a joint, you had the peons in cubicles and the executives snorting cocaine off their antique Italian desks. And that is the context of this novel. I'm going to read a little bit of the, just some excerpts from the beginning of the book. As I swung out of Copley Square onto the Mass Pike, the band on my radio swung into Hernando's Hideaway. Desultory snowflakes were drifting through the orange sky like petals. Half an inch, the weatherman predicted. I'd picked this station because Oxbridge, Connecticut is a 3-hour drive from Boston, and the rest were all playing Christmas songs. My dad taught me Hernando's Hideaway longer ago than I care to remember. He'd stand me on his shoes, and we'd sing it together as we tangoed across the parquet floor of our Manhattan living room. Dad's a ballroom virtuoso. As my mom says, he'll always have that to fall back on when he irks the state of New York into revoking his detective license. What I hadn't noticed until now is that Robert Frost wrote Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening to the same tune. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Try getting that out of your head when your alternatives are The Little Drummer Boy and Jingle Bell Rock. At Route 128, the projected snowfall rose to an inch. Okay, I thought, no problem. Being a media person myself, I'd thrown my heavy boots in the car just in case. I've spent enough nights stranded in airports and motels to take weather forecasts with a bag of salt. Dinner around 7:30, Lila Darnell, or rather Lila Easton, had told me on the phone. Cocktails whenever you get here. Come early, Corey, okay, so we can catch up before the horde arrives. Right. I was still too astonished to grapple with details. Lila in suburbia? Hosting a semi-formal dinner party? Never mind that this was a fate we'd been groomed for since birth. The core of Lila's and my friendship was our vow, copied from Jackie Bouvier, later Kennedy, later Onassis, never to be a housewife. And now the notorious Delilah, legend of the Ivy League, was happily married to a textbook publisher? Unthinkable. You might as well imagine Jerry Garcia designing neckties, or Bobby Seale writing a cookbook. It must be 15 years since I'd seen her. I'd picked Lila Darnell for my role model before that term existed. She was bold, brilliant, and beautiful, just the kind of uncommon woman I planned to become at Mount Holyoke College. My second week on campus, she electrified the grapevine by dumping Harvard's class president for a local woodworker. In January, she flew to Japan to spend semester break studying calligraphy and the tea ceremony. In March, she won a summer apprenticeship at a foundry in Perugia. Her plan after graduation was to become a famous sculptor, start an artists' commune, and launch a series of international affairs. With this Amazon for my mentor, I flourished. When Lila sold a terracotta demon to a New York collector, I caught a bus to Boston and pitched my first story idea to Phases. She chiseled, I wrote. She exhibited, I published. Shortly after Phases hired me as a stringer, I received a handmade invitation to her wedding in the East Village. There we sat up half the night, promising each other that our love lives would never overshadow our work. Several years later, she turned up on my Back Bay doorstep, divorced, praised my series on urban gentrification, bought me a dinner worth a month's rent, and left me a baggie of ganja from her Jamaican lover. That was the last I'd heard from Lila until her surprise reappearance in Connecticut. By Worcester, I was glad I'd brought those boots. The petals had escalated to confetti. Crossing the state line, I spotted the yellow lights of a snowplow. "Possible 4 to 6 inches," announced the radio. I called Lila to warn her I might be late and scratched my plan of stopping in Hartford for gas and coffee. "But I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep." Past Hartford, the traction got tricky. My little horse, an old VW Beetle, restored over the years like the Tin Woodman, progressed down Route 84 in a series of glides. As the snow thickened, Friday night's rush hour traffic had thinned. The forecasters were now issuing stern travelers' advisories. I peered through the troop of tiny kamikazes hurling themselves at my windshield, picked out a truck with bright lights and lots of tires, and pulled in behind it. Lila's directions depended on spotting landmarks: bank, mall, Burger King. Maybe I'd better call her again at Oxbridge. But I didn't make it to Oxbridge. The balance tipped a few miles before my exit. I'd been too busy keeping my wheels in the truck's tracks to notice how much the weather had worsened. Now I glanced at my gas gauge and saw I should have filled up in Hartford after all. While I was taking that in, the truck pulled left to pass a van, the only other vehicle in sight. I started to follow and felt the VW skitter like a water drop on a griddle. My stomach crowded my esophagus as I tucked in tight behind the van. You get used to navigating strange roads in rented cars, losing your way and finding it again, and you get cocky. You forget that travel holds greater dangers than arriving after check-in. At the Oxbridge exit, I bid the van a reluctant goodbye and inched onto the snow-lined ramp. The next 30 seconds were predictable. The VW took off downhill like a kid on a playground slide. We skidded past a guardrail, twirled across the road, and landed nose first in a snowbank. The radio was playing Blue Christmas. Otherwise, the world had gone silent. Snow fell past my headlights, beautiful and implacable. I surveyed the area. No bank, no mall, no Burger King. All I could see beyond my car was a distant glow where the highway must be. I called Lila's home number twice and got nothing. I called her cell phone and got voicemail. My emergency road service regretted that due to unusually heavy call volume, all representatives were currently helping other customers. I switched off the radio and pulled on my boots. There was already half an inch of snow on my roof. Now what? Stay iglooed in the VW all night or risk a potentially futile or fatal search through the storm for help? I found a window scraper under my seat. I dug snow away from my wheels. If my flashlight batteries would only hold out till I finished. I dimmed the headlights and lit a flare but left the engine running. With the gas gauge on E, I couldn't take the chance that once stopped it wouldn't start again. Not that any of these decisions were conscious. My brain had downshifted some time ago. All my energy was in my fingers. I chopped, I scraped, I scooped, I cursed. I felt like an archaeologist trying to extricate a mammoth from a glacier. Fresh snow refilled the holes I dug and blew into my eyes and mouth. Though my feet ached with cold, inside my coat I was sweating. How many eons had I been here? How many seconds till the motor died? Then lights and the rumble of an approaching car. So Corey gets rescued. She makes it to the party. She is on the trail of a scoop. Her editor has heard that there's something afoot among the guests at the party, and she gets plenty of chance to find out what that is because they're snowed in together, which for me as a writer is a great opportunity to pump up the story with excursions into sleep and dreams. The longest dream sequence in this novel is in the upcoming issue of Mnemosyne. And if you want to read the rest and find out what happens, I have copies for sale back there. There's a special tonight, $12 instead of the normal $15 list price. And I hope and trust you'll enjoy it. Thank you.